Hi, welcome to, I think this is episode 6 for Let's Talk Macarthur. As we get a little bit more, I might lose count, so you might have to forgive me for that. Today's guest is a principal lawyer at Coleman Greig. He's actually the head of the firm's property team. So he has a significant experience in all facets of retail, commercial leasing, extensive experience in major leasing and construction projects, particularly well known in the greater Western Sydney region, including Penrith and the Blue Mountains. He has strong connections with his local community. I've seen that firsthand. He's the driving force behind Coleman Greig Challenge, and an annual initiative that raises funds for St Gabriel's School for Children with Special Needs, the Royal Institute for Deaf and Blind Children, and Westmead Hospital Foundation. Welcome, Andrew Grima.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you for that wrap. That was a big introduction.
Mate, it could have been longer. I had a look at your profile on Coleman Greig website, and it's almost a thesis.
Yeah, well, I've been there a long time, and I've been practicing for a long time. So, I've clocked up a lot of experience. I've been to Coleman Greig 21 years, and I've been practicing for 25.
Wow.
And
so where did it all start for you, mate? We don't need to go right back to inception, but where did it all start for Andrew Grima? Where did you grow up, and where did you go to school?
Yeah, so originally I grew up in the outer western suburbs of Melbourne, actually. And then Mexican. And back in those days, pretty raw. It was actually a pretty raw world out there, outer western suburbs of Melbourne. You actually were pretty isolated. Always went to public schools. Parents didn't have much. And then back in the late 80s, when I was a teenager, mum and dad decided to move to Sydney, and we ended up moving to north of Penrith, actually, Cranebrook. And I finished my high schooling at Kingswood High, and worked really hard to get into uni. Really wanted to be a lawyer. Didn't get into law school straight away. Missed out. So did economics at Sydney Uni for a couple of years, and was lucky enough to then to transfer over into a combined law economics degree.
Yeah, well,
that was hard work, and a completely different world from a kid from the outer western suburbs, commuting every day into Sydney Uni. It was a real eye opener for me, actually, and really expanded my horizons, and I could see the opportunities. And it was quite interesting. So I'd be studying with kids who were from pretty well-to-do backgrounds, who'd gone to some really good schools, but I was able to, keep up with them. And because I always learned, particularly when I was in high school, and some of the schools I went to, was about being self-reliant, and you had to do it yourself. I wasn't spoon-fed, and that was always an ethos that I've carried through my whole entire life. You don't get anything for free in this world. You got to work hard for it. And that's really what put me in good stead. So I ended up graduating with a first-class honours degree in law, as well as my economics degree. Did quite a few jobs before I settled down. So I worked, had a couple of summers actually working in the economics division of Macquarie Bank. I had a passion for for economics, and I could have actually quite easily gone down that career path. But the law beckoned. Worked for about 6 months as a tax accountant at Arthur Andersen. This was in the era of everyone talks about the GFC, but when I went through it was during the big recession of the early 90s, and that was tough. Even getting a job as a lawyer was hard for graduates. So a lot of the law graduates got picked up by the top tier accounting firms, and I did tax for about 6 months. Ended up working then in a couple of different Western Sydney law firms, because it was about trying to get land a job in a law firm to get your qualifications. And as I said, it was really awful. And the recession officially ended, I think, in about 92 or 93, but but the effects of it lasted until at least about 95, 96. And ultimately, I landed after a couple of different law firms I worked for. I landed at Coleman Greig in September 99, and the rest was history.
Wow.
And Coleman Greig always gave me the opportunity to be myself and to have a go. And that's what I did there.
And you were still a young fella in 1999.
Yeah. I was 20. I was 29 back then. So
everybody's doing their math now, Andrew.
Yeah, I know. That's okay. It's funny how that time has gone so fast, I would say, Mark. That's been the amazing thing. My wife and I often talk about that. My wife and I met in the late 90s, and everything from that era seems only yesterday, but it's actually not. And when you watch those, not like it was a TV show that they had about 9/11, and it was 20 years ago, and you think, well, when that still only seems like it was such a big thing in our kind of life. And, and I can remember actually traveling to New York after that. But that was now a long time ago,
Yeah,
how quickly time's
yeah.
gone.
I understand what you're saying. Like, and something as innocuous as I walked past the TV the other night, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's T2 was on.
Yeah, right.
And I'm thinking, and I'm texting my mate Paul, and I'm going,
Yeah.
oh, mate, remember we went to the midnight session of this? We've been waiting 11 years for it to come out. That was 1992.
Yeah.
That was 30 years ago almost.
Yeah.
And I remember it like yesterday.
But the amazing thing is, a lot of the debates, a lot of the issues are still as pertinent now that were on then are as pertinent now. So the whole thing about tax reform, or about economic reform and productivity, all those things are as important now as they were back then. But now the world's changed dramatically with all these other challenges, and so it's just. In some respects, history's changed. The world has changed, and in some respects, it hasn't. Back then, we were grappling with technological change, and we're grappling with technological change now, but it's a different, more advanced technology. It's interesting.
And moving a lot faster. It was actually interesting because I've read some of your blogs on property reform and how and keeping on top of it and the changes, and probably we'll talk a little bit about in a minute about where that's going to go in the future. In March this year, you wrote a really interesting article in regards to the emergence of more subleasing arrangements because of the effects of COVID last year. So where are we at now with those arrangements now that we've gone into this longer restriction periods, but certainly here in New South Wales? How are those arrangements standing up?
Yeah, so we've been caught completely off guard. I think we were caught completely off guard, particularly in New South Wales. We're not now off guard, but I think everyone thought that life had gotten back to normal. We got into that new year period, and life just seemed to have almost continued on. And suddenly July hit. So I think because particularly in New South Wales, we've been in lockdown even longer than last year, this is going to have a profound impact on the workspace. And because of that profound impact on the workspace, that's going to have a profound impact on leasing transactions. To the extent that you look particularly in CBD Sydney, and probably less expensive CBD Parramatta, like the big centres, there's going to be all this office space there that people are not going to be wanting or needing to use like they once did, because their staff have now worked for far too long at home to be wanting to go back to completely 5 days a week. And I think double vax or no double vax, people's mindset and working arrangements will have changed. Consequence that's going to be people are going to need less space. So all these people who have got these big leasing spaces that they signed up 2-3 years ago, what are they going to do with it? They're going to have to cut it back. And the way they're going to do that is by entering into subleasing arrangements. And I'm seeing that still in my practice now. I'm seeing quite a bit of that. I'm seeing also where even that's in the commercial office space. In the industrial space, there is actually shortage of industrial property in Sydney. So what you're actually going to see there is, and I'm actually seeing quite a bit of this, where companies for businesses that have been affected by COVID or who have been affected by structural change, who have got these big long-term leases, because there's such a pent-up demand for industrial warehouse space, particularly for the whole click and collect e-commerce market.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those guys also who are saying, okay, well, they're subleasing out their spaces to those who need it. So it's a big change. I'm seeing a lot of that in terms of that whole COVID. And this could be a whole presentation. Maybe we talk about next on the chat.
Absolutely.
But that whole, now it's like 2020 all over again in the whole debate abound and negotiation around rental relief.
Yeah,
and I've seen
there's less of that rental relief this time around, because it seemed to be pretty clear cut last year as to what the rental relief was. It was over a shorter period of time, and some of those support mechanisms are not the same this year as they were last year. I think that dynamic that you were talking about in terms of subleasing, any of those arrangements that emerged late last year, they'd be in a very, very unusual position this year because they are sublease arrangements and don't fall under the same guidelines as to what the actual leaseholder would have.
It's a very good point. It's created some really tricky negotiations. So where, so you got to, I'm leasing a property, I'm subleasing to you. You and I have one negotiation that's completely different to the negotiation I have with my head landlord. Sometimes they piggyback off, but a lot of time they don't. The rental relief regime, the reason it is so much more complex than last year is because last year you only had to worry about the tenant's qualification for JobKeeper to be an impacted lessee. Now they've got to qualify for one of 3 programs. Those programs are new. They're still the state government's trying to work out how to administer the damn things. We don't know really what the rental relief period looks like. Is it going to go on till, so even if we all go back to work in October, or right at this moment, do we negotiate just for the period up until October? Do we lock it in for just the data we got, which is only up until August? And so it's a real problem for a lot of people. And the people I feel sorry for the most, I feel sorry for the actual businesses who are really affected by this, who are not making enough money, they can't pay the rent. But equally, I'm really feeling sorry for a lot of the property investors. There's a lot of small mum and dad investors out there that this is their superannuation, or they've worked hard there all their life. I know of some people that they put everything they had into one industrial unit, or everything they had into this one building. And then suddenly when they had a gym and a music school in there, well, who's going to, and so how are they going to get their rent now? And then I feel sorry for the actual property managers, because they're in a world of hurt, because a property manager generally gets paid on the basis, of the rental collections they make. Well, they're not collecting as much, and those guys are having to negotiate a lot of this stuff and not getting paid for it.
It's a whole cycle.
So there's a whole lot of stakeholders in the property industry who are suffering, and then you go at the higher level, and I've got exposure to this as well, where you've got these large companies out there, either property companies who are owning property on behalf of a super fund, or you'll have a large retailer. And just because they're big, it doesn't mean they're not suffering. So imagine you walk through Westfield, and I've had the opportunity to do this, and you see all those shops shut. There's the shareholders of Westfield, or I'm going to say Westfield. It could be even a smaller regional shopping centre that is even owned by a private investor. That's not generating money for the investor, but all those shops are just shut.
Yeah,
it's quite.
The impact
awful.
is enormous. Yeah,
it's horrendous. It's horrendous.
I think in future episodes we'll probably unpack that a little bit more. So anybody listening, we will have monthly updates and information sessions with Andrew that probably go for about 10 or 15 minutes, and we want them to be really useful, the information that the community can take away, and not just businesses but mums and dads, because as you say, there are a lot of these mums and dad investors out there that do throw all their money into a particular unit or something like that. One of the other sessions I thought that we'd like to talk about in the future too is where you see reforms heading for property. Taxes, including stamp duty and land tax and all of those. So, because that all has an impact on future investment as well. So there's quite a lot that we can go through. And just because you're the head of property law doesn't mean that you can't bring us information from other divisions within Coleman Greig as well, because I think there's so many divisions. When you go through the Coleman Greig website and have a look at what the company actually covers, I can't see anything that you don't cover, in terms of legal services.
I mean, I'd like to say, if you take your average business in Western Sydney, all the way from very tiny all the way up to a large multinational, we will cover the full legal service offering, whether that be employment law, we do immigration law, even dispute resolution, competition law, or any agreement you need to be negotiated. Business succession
and
planning,
family law too, because now that you've got offices out here at Oran Park and the Macarthur area, we've got family law out here Also, I know Jacqueline Burke.
Curiously, we'd always said back in the 90s, we were going to become a firm that was a business firm, but our personal services arm of our firm has continued to grow off the back of A, we've just got good people, and B, we're looking after the people who are employed by our commercial clients. Our commercial clients, they have personal needs, but just our reputation in that area. So family law, extremely strong. Estate planning is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And then that mum and dad resi conveyancing. We do a lot of that personal service stuff.
Which is great because it allows people to have a relationship and a connection for any of those areas that pop up during their life journey, right? Which is good. So just flipping back to property, what do you see as the main drivers that are underpinning the strength of the property market at the moment?
So, and I even know this from anecdotal in my own practice, but low interest rates is the biggie, number one. Number two, particularly right now during COVID, and I have to say I was so anxious about a year and a bit ago, where there was nothing happening. But what's just driving it is people have still got money, and so they can't travel. They can't go out to dinner, so everything's about their home. So we're seeing a lot of clients buying property because they're putting their money into it. The home is really becoming the home and the haven, but also the workspace. So they're upgrading to a bigger place in the same neighborhood. So I'm really seeing that driving the property market. I'm seeing that. But interest. But what I'm concerned about is what's going to happen in the short to medium term. I'm a bit anxious about the months of that sort of October, November period, because I think that's when the economic data is going to come out to say we're in a recession. And I think that there will be a little bit of a dip in demand there, because at the end of the day, some people are pulling their properties from the market. Now, pulling properties from the market is actually creating an artificial shortage of supply, which is therefore pushing up demand and pushing up price. Yeah. Then I think what's going to happen is, I think Sydney, Australia, but Sydney has always also been, real estate's been driven by a strong immigration program in recent years prior to COVID. You don't have immigration, you're not going to have that demand long term. I think though, if you listen to what the media is saying and you listen to some of the indications from the government, once we're 80% vaxxed, that's going to probably change again, and we're going to start getting people in again to our country. That will then kick along the housing market. And I think the negative forces on the real estate market will be interest rates longer term. So already I'm hearing stories of and comments around, banks talking about jacking up interest rates. And will they go to 2019? Will they go 19% levels? Probably not. But they don't have to go very far in this day and age to have a real impact. We talked about 30 years ago when interest rates were at that 18, 19% level. That was major. But in this day and age, interest rates don't have to go as far to have an impact because of the price at which people have been paying for real estate.
Yeah, the average mortgages are so much higher now than what they were then, relative to the incomes that are coming in. Absolutely. So we're going to flip it a little bit now.
Yes.
I want to talk about the Coleman Greig Challenge.
Yeah.
So Andrew is the main driver behind this. In my previous work life, we had an association with Coleman Greig over many years, and the standard go-to in those days for fundraising was the golf day. And then Coleman Greig had this brilliant idea of coming up with the challenge. So let's take you all the way back to, I'm pretty sure, was it 2013? Was the first one?
Yes, it was the first one.
Yeah. So let's kick us off in 2013. Where did the idea come from, and how did you put it together?
Yeah, it's actually, the idea came about a year earlier. I was talking to, you remember, I don't know if you remember Klaas Einberg, our old mate Klaas Einberg, and he was like a mentor to me, and we're talking about the golf, and we're talking about creating a new event with sport. And then I started thinking about it a bit, and then I approached Warwick and Liz, Liz was our marketing manager at the time, and Warwick is our CEO. And I said, look, everyone bike rides, this day and age more so than plays golf, and a lot of people run. And I was doing at that stage a lot of running. I was competing in half marathons and marathons, and I could really see a really big culture in the running scene. So I said, look, guys, I reckon we should try and create an event that would rival one day some of the big corporate events, running events you see in Sydney. And so Warwick and I got out one Sunday afternoon and actually scoped Parramatta Park on our bikes. Had coffee and breakfast, and we said, okay, I reckon we can do this. We even got our own, Strava out and measured and everything. Very archaic forms of Strava back then, being 2013. Yeah, and so the rest was history. So our very first event, we had, if I recall, it would have been about 60 odd people on the field. There was one bike race and one running race. We had a local running club that helped us measure performance by using icy pole sticks. So you collected your icy pole stick at the end of the line to work out where you came, and it was all very archaic, and it was stressful and hard work, but we got over the line. And then as the years went on, we refined it. We got feedback from stakeholders. At its peak, we had something like 600,000 people in Parramatta Park on a Friday morning in September. And that was people mixture between volunteers, competitors, and people just watching. At its peak, you had 3 bike riding events, A grade, B grade, C grade. I think you always did A grade. I think
no, mate. C grade. C grade. I should have dropped back to novice.
And then we had mate, you're very, very modest, mate. And then we had and then the running, we had a walk, 2.5k walk, 5k run, and 10k run, and that was a really good formula. 5k was always one of the best. When we first started, it was 13ks. It was too much for people. And it was right in the heart of Parramatta Park. We've raised, well in excess of $1 million over, that period of time. And so last year was really upsetting, particularly for myself. We couldn't do a physical event in Parramatta Park, so we started a virtual event. And interestingly, and we set no target for fundraising. We had the two charities last year, which was St Gabriel's School and the Hospital Foundation, and we raised as much money for them, those two organisations, net of costs, last year as we did the previous year.
That's awesome.
So, and that was really, really good. And we actually took off. Like, we had people from overseas. We had some couple of connections overseas who even participated.
Yep.
And so we're doing the same thing again this year, a virtual event, but it will be in November rather than in September. We'd originally aimed for September. Then we thought, okay, August, but we're settling on November because we think by then there'll be more of a relaxation of rules, and it'll be a virtual event again this year. So we're quite excited about being able to do that. And what happens in the future, we have to sort of see how the COVID rules go and all the rest of it. But we did get a lot of good response from the virtual event, and so it was really good. And I keep saying to people, I'm really passionate about the event because a couple of reasons. So initially, when the event really took off, I was actually having trouble having kids. I had one kid, I wanted another kid. And so I wanted to really put my time and resourcing into raising money for children in need. And then what happened was, as time went on, I was lucky enough to have another kid, like a 9-year gap, hence some bit of noise in the background.
Yep.
And then I thought, well, I'm very lucky that my kids are okay. Like, I want to help out people who are going, because I know how hard parenting is. Supporting kids in Western Sydney who have needs was very important to me. And then just really the other thing is, and you would get this, Mark, we're in business, we take a lot, and we're fortunate. Like, we're not really want for much. It's really incumbent upon us to give back and to actually share our resources in whether that be in time or money. because that's really how a good society works, and I think it's very, very important. I've actually also taken on the role as head of corporate social responsibility at Coleman Greig as well.
Awesome.
Which is all part of it as well. So, but the challenge is probably, if I look back, when I, one day retire or whatever, I'll probably look back and say that the era of the Coleman Greig Challenge has probably been my proudest thing that I'm known for. But I would say I'm proud more that it is because of a whole lot of people, not me, that this has happened. So there's a whole team at Coleman Greig who make it happen behind the scenes. And really, it only happens because all you people out there in Heartland, Western Sydney in business who have actually given. There's these organisations out there year in, year out, have just always just put their hand up, no problem. You say, oh, you want to be in there this year, mate? Yeah. What I've got to do, where I've got to sign up. And what they'll do, so the concept is you pay a sponsorship fund, and virtual event, not quite the same. But in the original model, non sort of COVID event, a company would pay a sponsorship, right? And then they put their people in. But it's their people who then fundraise. And we raise as much money from individuals doing their fundraising as we did from sponsorship. And last year, the main fundraising was just through people getting their own sponsorship and getting in their own dollars. That's where the money came from.
Yeah, and we see them because I've been involved, and there's benefits for the companies. They get connections with their staff. The staff get their families involved as well. I know we had Daryl Stanzik, who was running every year in the physical challenge, and he got his kids involved. It was just absolutely fantastic, and it just feeds right through not just your organisation, but all the organisations that have touch points with the challenge. I absolutely love it, and as much as you say there's wonderful people, and I think from memory in 2019 there would have been 100+ volunteers that were course marshals and all of this sort of stuff. It's massive involvement, but I think there was like 540, 550 participants just running and riding. So yeah, absolutely fantastic event. It is absolutely driven by your passion, and everybody loves your energy when you get behind it and really do it. Because as soon as you start talking to somebody about it, they have to get involved. It's simple as that.
I love it, and I try and bring people along for it, and and so now it's about trying to make it fun this year, so we're looking at a couple of things. A couple of the boys have dared me to do something to promote the event, so I'm looking at that.
Okay, I can't wait to see that.
So so they've offered to kick in some donation if I jump in an auto bin full of ice.
Yeah, I'll pay for that.
I've talked to my wife about it, Deb, and so not long after the Australia Day long weekend, when it's a bit more warmer, I'm going to take that challenge up. So that should be fun, and this year it will be about having you clock up your time however you want to do it. Yep. So I'll probably run. I'm going to do a bit more mountain bike riding maybe this year.
Awesome.
So it's good. So so thanks you. But I appreciate, Mark, I have to say personally, your support has been incredible over a long period of time.
It's been fun, mate. It's a lot of fun, and I'll make sure I get involved in the virtual challenge this year too. So
thank you.
Is great. I love St Gabriel's. St Gabriel's is a wonderful educational facility with kids with disability and intellectual disabilities. I'm involved with Mater Day, which is a similar type of school out here in the Camden area. And they are both wonderful organisations. So yeah, I'll definitely do it when I see it come around in November this year. So don't forget to shoot me an email. So here's a couple of on the spot ones for you.
Yes.
That I've enjoyed asking other people when I've been interviewing them, and some of them take a little bit of left turn. But if you were to write a book about yourself,
yes,
what would you name it?
That's a hard one, mate. I would say either a comeback kid, or it ain't ever over. So I've continually, I just keep coming back, keep reinventing myself. Yeah, and I never give up, you know, like, yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose that's
there's
probably
a
what
real
it was.
message in that.
Yeah, you know, like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard. It's a hard work. I don't know what the exact title would be, but it'd be all along that theme of, you know, like, you know, so I'm 51. I turned 51 this year, but like, you
Geez,
know,
you look so much younger than me.
I think, oh, no, it's my mindset, mate. Like, but that's the whole point. Like, I really feel there's always an opportunity in something.
Yeah.
And so for me, COVID, you know, it is a really awful time for a hell of a lot of people. And I've seen there's an image of that. I'll never forget this image of a guy I saw on TV in an apartment block with his kid, and he's just looking out the window because he can't leave this apartment building because it's lockdown.
Mm.
And there's so much stuff like that. But at the same time, I'm very positive about everything in life. So so I look at COVID and think, okay, well, I'm in this situation. You know, there's a whole lot of things I've missed out on doing. You know, like trips cancelled, all that jazz. But I hear my kids every day. You know, like I hear my little one, my 5-year-old, that I would never have had the opportunity to do. I've gained back time with him
Yeah.
before he starts school. You know,
Yeah.
because he starts school next year. You know, so that's been fantastic. So to me, yeah, I'm a very positive person. So everything's an opportunity. And you'll have knockbacks in life. If you don't have knockbacks in life, you're never going to actually
Learn.
be successful and learn.
Yeah.
You actually have to
Yeah.
learn. So I think that's the thing about getting older and being wiser. You got to actually have lost paint along your journey. If you don't lose paint along your journey, you actually are not. You don't want misfortune on people, but it is a great way to actually like learn.
I think that's your title, mate. Losing paint. I think that's a
Losing
great.
paint.
Losing paint. I think
I
we
agree.
should. Yeah, you should just register that one now and start
Yep.
writing. Yeah.
I
All
think
right.
that's a good one.
What's the one thing you wish you'd known when you began your career?
Oh, that when there's a crisis, it actually works out okay.
Mm. Yeah.
You know, so when you're right in the middle of a maelstrom of something, you think it's never going to end, and the world's going to come to an end, and you're going to be up all night, sleep, and you'll be up all night not sleeping.
Yeah.
I wished I had known then that, yeah, there will be a crisis, and you will go through those crises. You can't avoid them as being human anyway, right? I wished I had kind of when I was younger, not wasted so much energy stressing out over things. Like, you have to have some level of stress and take things seriously. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
I'm not saying you don't be cavalier, but just the notion it'll be okay.
Yeah.
And having the
good
ability
advice.
and have the ability to know that at the right time is the appropriate. Take things seriously and have your tentacles out and your detectors out.
Yeah.
But to actually think, you know, like it'll actually be okay.
If you could step into my shoes as the interviewer, what would you have asked yourself that I haven't?
I suppose, are you positive for the future for Western Sydney and Australia, notwithstanding the current world we're living in?
Are you?
Very much so. There is a whole lot of negativity out there at the moment. The media really, there is a lot of awful stuff, and some of that stuff is real, but it's easy. Again, it's a bit like that, what I just talked about before about if I had known what I know now, is that if you study history, every period of history going all the way back, you're going to have these chunks of time. You know, like in the 1920s, I was talking to a doctor friend yesterday who reminded me that, you know, in the 1920s, you had pandemics that lasted a number of years without any medication, without all the creature comforts we got, and the world got over it.
Yeah.
I think ultimately, and particularly where we live, you know, like, you know, Western Sydney, and I'm talking about the stretch all the way from Penrith down, you know, beyond Macarthur, you know, like you got that airport that's going to have aeroplanes. They're going to leave from here. They're going to carry food to Southeast Asia for the morning, you know, like that airport is going to be, you know, there is a lot of talk about it, but it is going to be such an incredible giant game changer for all of us who are in business.
Yep.
And, we may not all act for Qantas, but if we can act for all those businesses and talk to and deal with those businesses who feed off that airport, it's going to be an amazing opportunity for all of us and our kids.
Oh, when you look, and that's
incredible.
a whole other session, right?
That gets me so excited.
With infrastructure and industry and education, and there's just so much that's going to happen around that. So we might bookmark that one for a future time. We're going to wrap this up. I always wrap them up when I do these one-on-one interviews with 10 questions. Right, these are quick fire questions. I stole them off James Lipton from inside the Actors Studio. He'd asked them of people like De Niro, Stanley Tucci. He could play you in a movie.
Turn her up.
So here we go. What's your favourite word?
G'day.
Oh, what's your least favourite word?
Can't do.
What turns you on?
What?
What turns you on?
Positive people.
Yeah, love that. What turns you off?
Negative people.
Yeah, that was a given. What sound or noise do you love?
Sound of my kids.
Yeah. What sound or noise do you hate?
It's an interesting one. Not too many, actually. I'd have to say not too many sounds. I suppose people complaining.
Yeah. One from older generation is fingernails down a chalkboard, right?
Oh, no, they're that. Oh, that made my skin. Yes. Yeah. Yes. I tell my kids that one. They don't understand that because they don't have chalkboards.
Yeah. For me, I hate the sound of crying because you just feel like you need to just get in there and help whoever it is that's doing that. You don't have to say it, but you can indicate it. What is your favourite curse word?
The one I keep telling my kids to stop saying. Starting with an F.
Okay, yep. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
That's a hard one, really. I don't know. I don't think I'm doing what I'm doing, but I probably would have. I always say to my wife, I would have loved to have joined the army. I could have really done that. Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that too. Actually,
yeah, I love that.
Yeah. What profession would you not like to do?
Medical.
Especially at the moment.
It's tough gig. Those guys are amazing.
Very hard. Yeah. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you reach the pearly gates?
Welcome home, son.
That's nice. Andrew Grima, Coleman Greig, thank you very, very much for coming on today. And I'd like to personally thank Coleman Greig for coming on board as a partner for Let's Talk Macarthur. Really looking forward to the monthly sessions of information that we can just catch up and disseminate that to the audience, which will be absolutely fantastic. You have a great week. Stay positive. As I've been finishing off a lot of my text messages and emails with people, stay safe, stay sane, and stay connected.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks,
you.
Andrew. Goodbye, everybody.
Cheers, mate.
Goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye.